Okay, this is going to be our first book club, and today we are going to have a look at Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It's one of the most important books of the 20th century, and it is named after the temperature at which paper burns. So, the book begins with a woman's house being raided by the firemen. They try to remove her from the building so they can destroy the contraband she hoards. What contraband? Books, and they are to be burned. She refuses to leave, and the firemen must flee, for she has just struck a match. She intends to perish beside the fruits of centuries of philosophy. Her final words: "Play the man, Master Ridley. We shall this day light such a candle, by God's grace in England, as I trust shall never be put out." A quote from Latimer, burning at the stake. This woman is soon to do the same. So, let's get into the themes of the book, and while we get into the themes, we'll simultaneously have a look at the core themes that permeate this great piece of literature. The first of these is the destruction of the intellect. The protagonist of Fahrenheit 451 is a fireman named Guy Montag. The story takes place in a sci-fi future where firemen burn books as opposed to saving property from fires. Literature has become illegal in this future due to the fact that the culture has become extremely materialistic, and this consumerist culture depends upon people seeking instant gratification with products that are devoid of deeper meaning. All media has become easily consumed, hence why books are burned, while television has an almost omnipotent power over the public zeitgeist, why magazines are commonly enjoyed but the works of Aristotle are viewed as worthless. Bradbury put forth this destruction of value as a demonstration of how media has become increasingly simplistic and is designed to be consumed as opposed to being considered and thought about deeply. We can see this very clearly in the modern world if we look at the vapid pieces of media such as those that exist on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. The majority of the population is complicit with this consumerist culture, and they actually enjoy it. For instance, Montag's wife Mildred enjoys it quite a lot, but does she really deep down? That's up for debate. The degeneration of morality and the embrace of hedonism. The common people of this future have become exceptionally cruel, and wish to view people being killed by robotic dogs injecting lethal doses of morphine into their bodies by their sharp, narrow teeth. These dogs are nicknamed the Hounds. The pursuit of instant gratification, comedy, and fantasies results in a society of people who avoid any form of pain that they may feel from facing up to reality by indulging in these frivolous forms of entertainment. As a result of the people only focusing on instant pleasure, their lives are devoid of meaning, and below the surface people are chronically depressed, as they subconsciously know they are wasting time and achieving nothing, but they avoid facing up to this sad reality by turning to medication, similar to Soma that we see in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and not thinking about their troubles by seeking the instant gratification of vapid entertainment, thus perpetuating the cycle. Concessions to the mob. The government's ban of literature was not an instant phenomenon. It was a gradual process of subsections of society, minorities, demanding parts of the book that offended them be removed, and piece by piece these books became hollow and empty to please everyone. This eventually made people view books as a waste of time due to the fact that they now lacked any personality, and as we all know, if something is enjoyed by everyone, it is loved by no one. The book also divided the intellectuals and the common man, and this division was a problem to the government, thus providing another reason to ban the books. Escaping the collective and becoming an individual. This is perhaps the most integral theme to the book, and it is the thing that you'll probably take away as advice of how you can leave the current consumerist culture you are trapped in and become a true individual. Captain Beatty led the firemen, and he serves as a counsel to Montag for much of the book. He essentially advises Montag that there is naught to be gained by reading books, and so he should relinquish his newfound inclination to read. The captain evidently took up reading, like Montag, when he was younger. However, he ended up hating books as they failed to help him out of his dreary position in a society filled with degenerates. In spite of Beatty's advice, Montag continues to smuggle books out of the fires, and he hides them behind the oven of his house at the bottom of the chimney. Montag does this at a great peril to himself, as he knows the punishment for hoarding books. He knows what his wife will think. This shows Montag's dedication to the books, as they have started to give his life meaning, and he is committed to the process of becoming an individual and rejecting the spiritually dead society around him. There is a profound moment in the book where Montag breaks down and desperately tries to get his wife to read the books, to essentially wake her up to their value and how they are far more precious than anything their present culture can offer them. He fails to do this, and she has been so corrupted by the degeneracy around her that she thinks the books are silly. She does not wake up, likely because she did not have a sudden epiphany that there must be something more to life, like Montag did when he first met Clarissa. The fate of the individual in a collectivist state. Clarissa was an adolescent girl whom recently moved next door to Montag at the beginning of the book, as her family moves around a lot. By some miracle, likely the fact that her family reads, she has escaped the hollow culture that her peers engage in, which involves watching television, entertaining themselves, and speeding around in cars while injuring animals and bypassers as they do so. Clarissa loved nature, and she was responsible for Montag's gradual development into a true man whom had regained his humanity. Clarissa suffered at the hands of the degenerate culture that surrounded her. At 16, she was run down by her vapid and morally corrupt peers, whom deliberately hit her with their speeding automobile for entertainment. This is the most significant part of the book, as Montag goes from indulging her as part of his routine to genuinely missing her and wondering where she is, as his initial knowledge of her disappearance came about by her absence in his routine, and he was devastated when he learned her fate. It was this crisis that pushed Montag into his yearning for the lost knowledge of a bygone age. Ultimately, this resulted in Montag fleeing the city and travelling with the Rememberers, whom have memorized the great works of literature and spread their knowledge to other groups of Rememberers, constantly searching for more information and lost books. There is a scene towards the end of the book where Montag's wife, Mildred, invites 3 of her vapid friends to the house, and they sit in the television parlour and discuss how they voted for the president based on his physical attractiveness. as opposed to any philosophical agreement with his arguments. This infuriates Montag, and he begins reading poetry to them out loud, and this sparks tears in one of them, whose husband has just gone off to war, which causes the others to denounce the literature as evil. Mildred's friends leave, so she goes into the bedroom and begins burning Montag's books one by one. Montag saves the books, and he feels guilty for upsetting Mildred and her friends. And he ponders the thought that it is better to live in a world that is devoid of pain. As a result, he hands his books over to Beatty, who destroys them immediately, welcoming Montag back into the force, and he then argues with Montag about how books are worthless. Montag still disagrees with Beatty's assertion that books are worthless, but Beatty uses a plethora of quotes to try and put Montag in his place. Montag has not read as much as Beatty, and this must make him second-guess his perceived value of books. Nonetheless, this appeal to authority cannot dissuade his spirit that books are still valuable, and Montag comes to a similar conclusion to John the Savage in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, namely the quote I have displayed to the right. But I don't want comfort, I want God, I want poetry, I want real danger, I want freedom, I want goodness, I want sin. Obviously we know John the Savage's fate. He hangs himself to escape the degenerate culture that surrounds him. Montag's confrontation with Beatty is essentially a crisis of conscience, as he has Professor Faber, the only other reader Montag knows whom isn't Beatty, in his earpiece helping him to beat Beatty in the debate. The firemen are then called to Montag's house, and Montag is ordered to burn it down. When Beatty notices the earpiece, he removes it and informs Montag that he will track the source and burn all of Faber's books. This causes Montag to turn the flamethrower on Beatty, killing him. This is the point where the Hound begins to pursue Montag, attempting to kill him as the chase is broadcast on television. Montag fortunately escapes, but the authorities want to give the audience a show, so they order the Hound to kill a random man walking his dog in the early morning. Their thirst for blood is satisfied. Montag then finds the Rememberers, where he joins them on their pursuit of knowledge. Montag has now escaped the culture that has destroyed man's humanity. There is no revolution, there is only biding time, and remembering the great works of literature until society is once again ready to accept them. That was essentially the plot and core themes of Fahrenheit 451. In my opinion, one of the greatest works of literature of the 20th century. I highly recommend you read it if you have not already done so. That's the end of book club number 1. Thank you.